Welcome to Hyperfixation Investigations, the podcast where two neurospicy best friends take time 2 Saturdays a month to info dump their research deep dive of the week.
Lovingly produced and copyrighted by Wolf and Stag Productions.
Today's fun fact is, the oldest known leap year baby was Hans Schornack, who was born on February 29, 1912, and died on February 22, 2023, meaning he lived to be simultaneously 110 years old and 27 years old.
Good evening, I'm Kara, and I will be leading this week's episode, Leap Day. Only 730.48 days until next Leap Day. Part 2 of our mini-series, Home Planet Happenings.
Good morning, I'm Josh, and I'm just along for the ride. For those of you joining us for the first time, how things work here is Kara will be guiding us through a mini lecture on the topic, and we will discuss and ask questions throughout the episode.
Expect a lot of tangents. We switch off duties each episode, so next time expect Josh to lead the episode.
Now to our regularly scheduled program. Kara, what have you been hyperfixating on this week?
Well, Josh, if everything goes right, this episode should release on February 28th, 2026, which means we are 730.48 days away from our next leap day, which will be February 29th, 2028.
That's soon.
I know. And while lots of articles and mentions of leap day and leap year happen in the Februaries of leap years, we don't much talk about it in the intervening time.
No, we kind of happily forget about it
Yeah.
until, I suppose
It's a
it
leap
is.
year.
Yeah, what do you know?
So let's talk about it. It's actually a pretty important part of general science and culture throughout the world.
Yes,
So we're going to talk a little bit about how leap day/days came to be, the Julian and Gregorian calendars that utilize them the most and have been adopted over the many years by many countries. And we'll also touch on some other calendar systems that either used to exist, still exist, or could one day replace the leap year Gregorian calendar we currently use, at least in most Western cultures and countries.
Yes! Different types of calendar!
Woo!
I am actually unreasonably excited about various types of calendars.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's perfectly normal, I assure you.
It is, absolutely, yes. We're totally normal. That's why we started a podcast where all we do is talk about random shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For perfectly normal, sane reasons.
Yes,
Mm-hmm,
precisely.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we will also touch on some of the folk traditions that surround Leap Day and also Leap Day birthdays.
Aha!
Before we jump into any of our main categories, there are a few little tidbits and definitions that I kind of want to just get out of the way because they get mentioned a few times in different ways. So one of them is the definition of a tropical year. And this is from NASA. The tropical year is the period of time required by the sun to pass from the vernal equinox to the next vernal equinox, so the spring equinox.
Yes.
It is equal to 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 46 seconds, or 365.2422 days. So, a year and a quarter day.
Yeah. A year and a bit.
Yes. And because it has this extra 5 hours, 48 minutes, and seconds, our calendars didn't really account for those extra 348 plus minutes each year. And if our calendars don't account for that, our seasons would eventually shift really dramatically. Over the course of a single century, our calendars would be off by 25 days a year. Over the course of maybe 700 years, everything would flip. The Northern Hemisphere's winter solstice would occur in June, summer solstice in December, etc., etc.
Yeah, that quarter of a day adds up
really
lot
fast.
faster than most people realize.
Yes. We also have a quote from Alexander Boxer, who's a data analyst who works in this area. He also says it's a great reminder that the calendar most people rely on every day is actually the product of multiple civilizations building off each other as they share in what he calls this great undertaking of trying to understand time.
Nice.
Yes. And we'll have a little bit more from the article that quote is from later on. But I thought it was a nice way to kind of concisely and well put say what we're going to be talking about in this episode.
See, I would usually just say time is a weird soup.
Yes. And of course, my favorite is the Doctor Who.
Oh, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so let's kind of jump in with the calendars that started this whole idea of leap day and leap years, which were the largely and most accomplished, the Julian and then the Gregorian calendars.
I wonder, who could Julian be
who could
referring
Julian
to? What is a Julian?
Your guess is probably completely accurate. Anyway, the leap day is also called a bisextile.
Yes, okay.
Yes, and it dates back to... You just had to
Sorry.
take a second with this.
I had to sit with that for a second.
Uh-huh.
That makes leap days the best birthday for bisexuals.
Yes. So leap days date back to 46 BC, and this was the time of Julius Caesar. We will jump around just a little bit in this chronology because I'm going to be going from source to source
Yeah.
because it was going to be a lot more work to try to put it in chronological order. So forgive me for that.
I hear ya.
Yeah.
I get it. It's always a battle every episode. I'm like, I always just end up going with whatever is going to make it easier for me to actually get it out.
Yep.
So I feel ya.
Yep. So Julius Caesar was in charge in ancient Rome in 46 BC, and he took the advice of the astronomer Sosigenes of Alexandria, who knew from his Egyptian experience and astrology that the tropical year was 365.25 days long.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So a leap day, on his advice, was added to the calendar every 4 years. This new Julian calendar, named for the emperor that had it put in place, was used throughout the Roman Empire and then by the Christian churches. And at this time, culturally, February was the last month of the year because the spring and the vernal equinox was considered the start of the year in like Roman culture.
Yes.
So to transition from the Roman calendar, which predated the Julian calendar, the Roman calendar had 355 days and was essentially a lunar calendar. And they had to transition it, obviously, now to this Julian calendar, which had more days in it. And so to get all of the months and the feast days and the holidays and all of that back to their normal seasons, because part of the reason Julius Caesar switched it was because dates of holidays and feast days were starting to fall in the wrong seasons, like harvest festivals weren't happening at harvest, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that's a bit problematic with
Yeah.
the whole point of a harvest festival.
Right. So he added 90 extra days to the year 46 BC. He divided those 90 days into 3 temporary months. One was added between February and March, which is likely why Leap Day eventually ends up at the end of February. And then 2 other months, potentially called Intercalaris Prior and Intercalaris Posterior, were added after November. So the end result of that year of 46 BC was 15 months or 445 days long.
See, this is part of why I just go with time as a weird soup.
Right.
Because...
It's a human construct, and it's different,
Right.
like by every culture and measurements and sciences and maths and
Like,
feast
yes,
days and
there is, by the movement of the celestial bodies, a relatively clear and definitive, oh, hey, this is what this day is. Like, this is when in the year this occurs, relative to those celestial events. But just, hey, guys, we're going to add 3 months to the end of this year, and then we'll pick it back up next year.
But it won't be the year that you're used to because we're doing this new thing.
Now, we got 3 months to switch over all the signs, right? It's like if America tried to switch to metric.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Which has been attempted a few times, just every time it's been utterly half-assed. And then everyone goes, oh, well, never mind, we take it back.
Yeah.
Except you have to fully commit because it's the calendar and, well, you're naming it after yourself, so.
Right.
Of course.
But this year, with all of its extra days and months, was nicknamed the Year of Confusion.
That's perfect.
And to further self-aggrandize himself, Julius Caesar also renamed the 5th month, formerly known as Quintilis, Quin 5, after himself, and that's where we get July.
I will say, if you ever doubt the ego of this man...
His ego is my favorite, the kidnapping story.
Yes!
Yes, I'm worth more than you're asking for.
That was exactly what I was going to talk about.
Yes.
The time he was kidnapped by pirates and he went, oh, please, you need to be asking for a higher price than that. Buddy, you're being ransomed. Don't ask the pirates to ransom you for more. That's okay.
Yep. Yep. This calendar worked really well after it was
Mhm.
finally accepted by people.
Crazy that if you actually adjust for variances,
Yes.
it gets more stable.
So many countries adopted it, but it was still a flawed calendar. It is off by about 11 minutes and 14 seconds,
Oh.
longer than the tropical year. So to fix this, essentially the tropical year would shift one day backwards with respect to the calendar every 128 years.
So they would actually have one fewer days.
And this made the method for calculating the dates of things like Easter very inaccurate.
Oh, God.
So you can guess who was upset about that.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
So the year 1582 rolls around.
1582!
Yeah, we've jumped from 46 and 45 BC to 1582. So for all of those hundreds of years, the Julian calendar was in effect, which also means that it was hundreds of years of this 11 minutes adding up and creating problems. So,
I mean, hey, if it ain't fixed, don't broke it,
right.
I guess.
Yeah.
And it works well enough.
Except the Catholics are now angry, and the Catholics are in charge by now.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Pope has probably amassed a bit of power.
Yes. The calendar, thanks to this overcompensation of the leap years, had now fallen out of step with the tropical year by 10 days, at least. It was then that Pope Gregory XIII stepped in and, on the advice of a German Jesuit mathematician and astronomer, Christopher Clavius, produced the current Gregorian calendar.
So we named it after the Pope and not the astronomer who did the calculations.
Right.
I mean, it makes sense.
Of course it does.
I'm still going to be a little
salty about it.
Salty about it for the sake of that.
The German Jesuit astronomer. Well,
who actually did the work to figure out the math
on the Catholic Church and what they do and don't do to Jesuits over the years. Anyway, we're not getting into that. So to catch things up, 10 days were omitted from the year after Thursday, October 4th, 1582, making the next day Friday, October 15th.
Okay.
Yeah. So I really want you guys to understand just how screwed up our current calendar is. I mean, obviously things like months and days of the week and all, they're completely human conceptions.
Yes.
And so we just screw with them sometimes. And then, it's like weird non-time travel time travel.
What a strange time to find yourself in. Either Julius Caesar going, don't worry, guys, the next 3 months don't count.
Right.
Or the Pope saying, oh, no, don't worry. The last 10 days didn't happen.
There are no 10 days.
There are no 10 days.
It's just 10 days forward.
Yes.
In time.
The next 10 days are actually non-existent, and we're jumping ahead.
Yes. Yep. It wasn't a popular idea.
Sure. You mess with people's calendars and their expectations of...
Well, and it was the 1500s.
Oh.
People were superstitious. They're like, you're stealing 10 days of our lives, essentially. There were riots in the streets. People wanted to be paid for their 10 days time of work, even though that they, weren't actually working.
But it's not, that time didn't actually pass.
Yeah.
There's not.
Right.
I'm sorry, this is hysterical.
Hey, cameras can steal your soul. And the Pope can steal 10 days from your life, apparently.
Yeah, that's fair enough, I guess.
Yes. So they continued formatting the Gregorian calendar with something called century years. And century years, like 1300, 1700, were declared not to be leap years. And they had been leap years in the old Julian calendar, so that was a change. The exception to this rule was that century years divisible by 400 could be a leap year. And that is why the year 2000 was a leap year, but 1700, 1800, and 1900 were not.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So this is the 1580s. The Gregorian calendar was not adopted by the American colonies until 1752, nearly 200 years later. George Washington was not born on the day we consider Washington's birthday.
Good.
Good. Why not? I think this is according to a Space.com article written by Joe Rao. Most of this information has been. We celebrate Washington's birthday on February 22nd, but he was born in 1732. And the error in the Julian calendar had increased to 11 days. And that was the calendar still being used in the colonies.
Oh,
So
right.
in Washington's day, he would have been born on February 11th, 1732.
That's okay.
So, yeah.
I mean, I get it.
Mm-hmm. So it took 20 years for the American colonies to ratify the Gregorian calendar.
Oh my God.
In
right,
Russia,
because of course, every political entity has to actually recognize that, oh, this is how we're changing the calendars now.
Right.
That everyone is trying to agree on international, like in an international basis, what day is what day.
Oh, but Josh, Russia didn't ratify the calendar until 1918.
Russia? Why?
So again, so many different cultures and so many different countries there are so many different versions of calendars out there, and we still don't agree on one.
No, that's yeah.
Greece held out even longer. 1923.
See, again, where this really gets me is any kind of international trade.
Uh-huh.
Where you're trying, like, you're writing contracts and you have to take into account, their calendar is different, so we have to, this, whatever trade agreement, whatever action will be complete by this date on your calendar.
Uh-huh.
And
on
this date
on my
calendar.
Yes.
But again, it makes sense why.
It really does.
Why it happened.
So all in all, the Gregorian calendar is much better than the Julian calendar. In the span of a year, it runs 26 seconds too fast.
That's not bad.
Instead of 11 minutes. It's an error so small that it will not be necessary to eliminate a day from the calendar until 5300.
That's pretty good.
Yes. So we're going to move very quickly to NASA's calendar calculations because they get into this just a little bit more mathy, so I apologize in advance for that. But
hell yeah.
Between 46 BC and 1582 AD, the accumulated error of the Julian calendar amounted to a total of 12.7 days. In 1582, Pope Gregory XIII reformed the calendar so that all years divisible by 4 are to be leap years, except for the century years, which must be divisible by 400. The Gregorian calendar came into use in Roman Catholic countries in October of 1982. And the seasons were brought back into a step by eliminating 10 days from the calendar then in use. Not the 12.7, but 10.
Sure.
Close enough. Britain and its colonies did not introduce the Gregorian calendar until September 1752, by which time an additional 1-day correction was required. It was actually, to be completely accurate, 1.33 days. And some British documents from this period before the British Reform actually contain 2 dates.
Oh, yep.
The old and the new calendars.
Again, you gotta be thorough enough in your documentation so as to not be confusing.
Yep.
Which, honestly, it's confusing and frustrating enough dealing with just people writing the dates differently.
Yeah.
Do you write year, day, month, or month, day, year?
Or day, month, year.
Or, what? Is that what I said? What did I say?
Month, day, year, month, day. You started one with year and one with month.
Oh. Well, I have gotten into the habit because of work writing year, month, day. Because it's a little less confusing than the difference between day, month, year, and month, day, year.
Which I still get confused with day, month, year because of when I lived in Canada. And everything was day, month, year.
Yep.
There.
So, yeah.
So, briefly, we're going to hop into this article from the Smithsonian Folklife series.
Ooh.
Which I have to read you the title of it just because it's a fun title. Why Things Go Topsy-Turvy on February 29.
Yep. You know what? I approve.
Yes.
I like that.
So it's a common question when you kind of start to think about leap day as to why it ends up at the end of February and not December when the year ends. And we briefly touched on this before, but the yearly cycle for many cultures in the Northern Hemisphere, especially in like historic and pagan times, began with the birth of springtime in March and ended with a bleak winter in February. The Latin-derived names, and this is a direct quote here, the Latin-derived names for September, October, November, and December mean 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, which relegated January and February as the 11th and 12th when the Romans added those months to the calendar. The Gregorian calendar of 1582 officially established January as the first month of the year and February as the second month, but still stuck with a variable length of 28 or 29 days in February as, quote, the end of the year still.
Yeah, I mean, that tracks.
Yeah. We're going to go kind of into something that you touched on in our Valentine's episode.
Oh?
We're going to talk a little bit about Rome and Romulus and all of that fun stuff.
Hey! Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is a Time.com article, Who Decided February 29th is Leap Day by Chad de Guzman. It traces its roots to ancient Rome, leap days in general.
Right.
Romulus, the first king of Rome, brought the Roman Republican calendar into existence around 738 BC, saying that a year began in Martius, now called March. And the year was 10 months long, and it didn't account for winter because people didn't work then.
Right. You don't need to track time during winter. It's winter.
Right. There were a lot of irregularities in this calendar to other calendars of trading partners, as you mentioned. So in the 7th century BC, Numa Pompilius, the second Roman king, decided to formally start counting the winter months. And that is when Ionarius and Februarius, January and February, were added at the end of their calendar year. As we mentioned, Roman calendar, even with this addition, is now going to go out of whack with the seasons.
Could be worse.
Because it's not taking in the account of the extra 0.24 days. So every 2 years, the Roman councils would, just on a whim, add a 27 or 28 day 13th month.
Well, hang on.
Yep.
Just add a whole extra
Month.
month every couple of years.
Yes.
Just
whenever they felt like it.
okay.
And it was
Okay.
called Mercedonius, and sometimes called Intercalaris, to shift the measure of time back in sync with the sun.
Sure.
And normally,
Sure.
this extra month would be inserted after February 23rd, cutting February short by 5 days, which immediately followed the celebration of Terminalia, an annual festival on February 23rd that honors the ancient Roman god of boundaries, Terminus.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Yes. And the Roman calendar was essentially, as I had mentioned very briefly, a lunar calendar, which would typically have 28 days per month.
Yes.
And like February is like the one holdover, really, in our Gregorian calendar to that time.
Yeah. It is amusing that any stolen days from February abutted to Terminus's boundary. Really, like the god of boundaries. Just,
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's the edge. He's the
Yeah.
boundary. Why not?
Yeah. So when Caesar first added the intercalary day after February 23rd, he did it in an interesting way. And this is part of why the days came to be known as bisextus, because he didn't really add a day as much as he made February 24th 48 hours long.
Oh, he just said it's just a double day.
Right. And because the double day fell on the 6th day before the start of March, it came to be known as bisextus, and some cultures to this day still refer to it as such.
That makes sense.
And as bisextile years. As
Sure.
well.
I mean, it's all very silly, but it makes sense.
Yes. To end out this section, before we move to our intermission, there's a whole new level of timekeeping. And I'm going to read this section of this article from the Times word for word, because they just say it so well. It would seem safe to assume that humanity had perfected the art of tracking time by now. But one more adjustment was made beginning in 1972, leap seconds, which helped to make up for an ever so slight remaining difference between Coordinated Universal Time, UTC, which is based on the Gregorian calendar, and atomic time, which more closely approximates solar time and is slightly faster. But timekeeping is not an exact science, and sometimes it causes so many headaches that experts decided to stop pursuing such precision. And in 2022, when the world's foremost metrology body decided to abandon leap seconds altogether by the year 2035.
Oh.
We've got leap years, and we've got leap centuries, and we've got leap days, and leap seconds.
And they instituted leap seconds in the 70s, and then a couple years ago said, actually, we'll be abandoning these shortly, don't you worry.
Yeah. It's way too much effort and work and for a level of precision that's not generally needed.
You know, I always appreciate when scientists and mathematicians get together and agree, we can be less accurate about this, actually, and nobody would be bothered, right?
But with that, I think we're done with this section, and we're going to head to intermission.
Woo!
Woo! Well, we may not get an extra day this year, but we can take a few extra minutes for a quick break today.
For those of you who appreciate social media updates and episode reminders, please follow us on YouTube, Hyperfixation Investigations Podcast, or Blue Sky at HI-podcast. So go check us out on those platforms and follow along.
And please, leave a comment or review on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or even on our website. We love to hear from you, and it helps us a lot. Well, it's time to check our calendars and clear a bit more time to finish up our episode. So now we're back, and we're going to actually pick up with that Times article again, but to open up our section of this episode on other calendars, or at least that's what I have it written as my heading in my outline.
Fair. I mean, if we're talking about other calendars beyond Gregorian and Julian.
So it's important to note that intercalation, which is officially the insertion of days in a calendar, has been used across many civilizations to try to line up or fix the discrepancies between a lunar and solar calendar.
Sure.
It varies across cultures. The ancient Egyptian calendar year was composed of 12 30-day months with 5 epigomena, or days, appended at every year's end.
Like just 5 days at the end?
Yeah. In lunisolar timekeeping, like in the Chinese calendar, there's an extra month added every 3 years, allowing adherents of those years to celebrate 2 spring months to welcome the new year, or double spring. There's also Vikrami and Hebrew calendars, where a month is added once every 3 years or so, following the moon's 19-year cycle of phases. Islam's lunar calendar has a 30-year cycle in which 11 of those years have an extra day added to the month.
Nice.
And I'm not even going to start trying to figure out how those all line up with our current calendar. We're not going that far. And like we're not going to get into the Maya or the other ways of ancient civilizations tracking. We're not going there.
Are we going to discuss third year of the reign of this king?
No.
Okay. Because that does always amuse me.
Yes.
When it's just, which Emperor Septimus was it? Right. Well, it was the 32nd year of the 7th Septimus, but not the... And, you know, I pulled Septimus as a name out of the hat. But that always amused me as, oh, gods, you really have to know the history to be able to accurately remember.
And we're not even going to get into BCE versus CE versus BCAD versus... No.
No AC/DC?
No AC/DC. There are, as we mentioned, Chinese, Buddhist, Islam, Vikrami, Hindu, all kinds of different calendars, all kinds of different ways of tracking things. You've got ancient pagans putting up Stonehenge and the Mayas doing what the Mayans do. There's also calendars that have been proposed to replace the Gregorian calendar. So we're going to talk a little bit about those.
Okay.
Most of this comes from either space.com or obp.org and some articles they have about Leap Day. Again, these references will be on our website.
Okay. Actually, sorry, before you begin, I will just say I really did appreciate that bit of the Egyptian calendar because I really like the idea of, well, you just segment everything into even as much as possible, and then you do whatever you have to make the rest work. Which is precisely why...
We like metric?
Yes.
Yes.
Would that the year actually was as compliant.
Mm-hmm. Well, and me, spiritually speaking, I just want it to be lunar-based.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, that has more...
significance for you?
Well, and like, I feel like the lunar calendar and lunar phases affect our day-to-day life more than like the solar phases do.
That's fair.
I mean, going around the sun and our days and our year and whatever change our seasons and the tilt of how we're facing it and whatever. But like every single day, the moon has a huge influence on our tides and on, the There's reason that the lore behind full moon craziness exists and why all teachers and medical professionals will tell you that it's real. And, so in my opinion, we should just do it all based on the moon. But obviously, I'm not in charge. Too bad.
No. So you want a lunar calendar, and I want everything to fall neatly within either 12 or 10 months of a perfectly even number of days.
Right. So neither of us are going to get our way.
No.
Unfortunately.
10 months of 36 days would be great, but then you need at least 5 and a bit extra here and there, which, don't get me wrong, I think it would be great. Just use the equinoxes and the solstices as the markers for the beginning and ending of like those months, because then you could just go, oh yeah, the same way we mark the seasons by the beginning and end of, or by the time of the equinoxes and solstices, you could just put the months within the seasons instead of having, well, partway through this month is this equinox. And then you could even, honestly, just use the equinox or solstice day itself as an intermediary day between months. It's not within any month. It's a solstice day.
You're going to like some of these if you would let me get to them.
Yes, I know. I'm sorry. Please continue. I just have feelings.
So one of the more popular proposals of a new world calendar was created by Elizabeth Achelis of the World Calendar Association in 1930.
Okay.
The world calendar consists of 364 days. The year would be divided into 4 quarters, with each quarter consisting of 3 months. The first month of each new quarter, January, April, July, and October, would have 31 days and would always begin on a Sunday.
Oh.
All the remaining months would have 30 days. In this setup, the dates would fall on the same day of the week every year.
Oh, that's nice.
So if you were born on a Tuesday, which I was, your birthday would always fall on a Tuesday. Independence Day would always fall on a Wednesday. Christmas would always be on Monday, etc. The exact quote from this article is, Thanksgiving would finally have a fixed date, November 23rd.
I really appreciate that, just for the sake of consistency. Oh, that's nice.
So then there would also be something known as World's Day. December 31st would be recognized as such, and it would be considered a world holiday. It would come between Saturday, December 30th and Sunday, January 1st.
Okay.
And
I like this.
Yes. As for leap years, the extra day would be inserted not at the end of February, but at the end of June. June 31st would thus become a second world holiday, kind of like the Olympics, every 4 years. And so then, with the 2 world days on leap years and 1 world day every other, normally for the other 3 years, it makes up for the whole discrepancy of 0.24.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I like that it's on a leap year. In that case, it would still be every 6 months you would have the World Day because you'd have the one in June instead of, Yeah. Oh, I'm about that.
Yeah. Interestingly, this would include 4 Friday the 13th. And currently, the maximum we can have a year is 3. I'm so down for more Friday the 13th, personally.
I was going to say, I can, smell a weird, superstitious...
sect coming up from the... Yeah.
Both in favor and against this calendar immediately.
Yes. Marilyn Vos Savant, in 2016, answered a question from a reader of Parade magazine who wanted to know if there was a, quote, less clunky alternative to the present calendar. They mentioned the Symmetry 454 or Symmetry 454, I'm not sure which way it is, calendar, which is a perennial solar calendar. It keeps the traditional 7-day week, it has symmetrical equal quarters, and every month starts on Monday.
Oh, okay.
All holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, etc. would then be permanently fixed.
Okay.
All ordinal day and week numbers within the year are also permanently fixed.
Okay.
And in this calendar, Friday the 13th never occurs.
Okay. What's the catch?
The drawback is that every 5 or 6 years you would have to add a week at the end of December.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of tough. It's the more work you have to do to make the calendar work, yeah, the more frustrating it's going to be for
Currently,
everyone to deal with.
That world calendar, the world days.
It sounded pretty good.
So another one that could be a potential this is from opb.org, Why Do We Leap Day, was created by Steve Hankey, a professor of applied economics at Johns Hopkins University.
Oh.
He argues that our current calendar, in which the dates occur on different days of the week every year, can create a lot of scheduling problems and confusion around holiday dates, depending on your different cultures, whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
So he and Johns Hopkins astrophysics professor Dick Henry have created the Hankey-Henry permanent calendar.
The Hankey-Henry.
Yes.
Amazing.
And this new calendar would implement an occasional leap week rather than leap day. So he's quoted as saying, the great thing about the permanent calendar is that it never changes. The date would be on the same day every year, year after year after year. January 1st is always a Monday. July 4th is always on a Thursday. Christmas is always on a Monday. And their calendar divides the year into 4 3-month quarters with the same number of days.
I'm sensing a theme.
Yep. The first 2 months of each quarter, including, in this case, like January and February, would always have 30 days, and the third month would have 31. So it's the world calendar, but switched up a little bit.
Sure.
And then every 6 months, there would be an extra 7 days at the end of December, which Hankey says would, quote, eliminate calendar drift.
Hang on, did you say 6 days at the end of December? How often?
7 days at the end of December every 6 years.
Okay, 7 days every 6 years. This does just feel like a variation of the world calendar again. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, a less good one.
Yeah.
Because again,
now
you're adding a leap week every 6 years.
But then maybe it could be a holiday for everybody. If the whole world agreed to it, which is also like a whole thing. The whole world's never going to agree on a calendar. But
no. I would love that, but
yeah. Hankey does argue that this proposed calendar would clear up a lot of confusion and potentially save money, pointing to studies from the United Kingdom that show the economic gains associated with public holidays being on weekends.
Oh.
He thinks it would be easy for a president to implement the new system by executive order, something that he and his colleague have drafted, but he does describe their lobbying efforts as more of a soft sell at the moment.
Any more big calendar shenanigans really need to go to the UN so that everyone can talk about and hopefully maybe agree on it.
That pretty much wraps up, though, our other calendar section. So to finish off, we're going to talk about the traditions and celebrations around leap year and like the folk ideas around it.
Ooh, yes. Okay.
So, of course, we have to start with the Irish.
No, that's such a surprise from you.
I know. So many people have probably seen the movie, I think it's Leap Year. It's a rom-com. Everybody should go watch it. It's from like 2010 or something.
Oh, I've heard of it. I don't know it. I haven't seen it.
It's cute.
I'll add it to my watch list.
So the tradition is that a leap day is the time for a woman to propose marriage to their partner.
Oh.
Instead of the other way around. And this is said to date back to 5th century Ireland, when St. Brigid complained to St. Patrick that women were tired of waiting for men to propose. As the patron saint of Ireland, she was able to convince St. Patrick to allow women to propose to men once every 4 years, which became known as Ladies' Privilege or Bachelor's Day. This tradition...
Hang on. First of all, that's St. Patrick?
Uh-huh.
Second of all, okay, don't worry, honey. You get 1 day every 4 years.
Well, yeah. And also, like, St. Patrick was probably just like a bishop.
Uh-huh.
St. Brigid was not a person. Because she's based on they co-opted a pagan goddess and turned her into a saint.
Yeah, of course.
So,
Oh, that's even more demeaning.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So this tradition traveled to Scotland, Britain, etc., and it's thought to have been adopted into law by the Scottish Queen Margaret in 1288. Though at this time she would have been 6. So
okay. Yeah.
According to Scottish tradition, women had to wear a red petticoat while proposing. And turning down a lady's privilege proposal was costly. Men had to reimburse the women they rejected with gifts, such as gloves, so that she could hide her ringless finger, or could even be fined.
Wait, that's actually hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm sure nobody made good use of that.
Right.
That's great.
In Greece and other countries, getting married during a leap year is considered bad luck.
Oh.
So it really depends on where you're at.
Oh, okay.
In Taiwan, it's believed the elderly are more likely to die during a leap year. And so for this reason, married Taiwanese daughters often return home on leap day to cook pig trotter noodles, a dish made with pig's feet, for their parents, which is thought to bring them good fortune and health.
Oh, okay.
One of the...
Got to counteract the bad luck with some good.
Yep,
That's fair.
The funny folklores or traditions is a French satirical newspaper that was launched in 1980 called La Bougie de Sapeur, and it does have a British version as well, but this is the original.
Sure.
It's only published on Leap Day. It's named after a comic book character that was born on Leap Day, and the publication is known for satirical humor and claims the title of least frequently published newspaper in the world.
I love anyone who's willing to stick to the bit.
Yep.
That's good stuff.
Yep. We also have Anthony, Texas and Anthony, New Mexico.
What?
They share a border and the same name. They also claim to be the leap year capitals of the world. And every year...
Towns.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. I was like, who is Anthony, Texas?
Yep.
Who's Anthony, New Mexico? Who are these men? Okay. Towns.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Towns. So Anthony, Texas hosts a festival every 4 years to help leaplings, or people born on Leap Day, celebrate their special day. It includes parades, a big birthday party, et cetera, et cetera. And there is some claims that Anthony, Texas and Anthony, New Mexico have the most amount of leaplings born, like per capita or whatever.
Sure.
Which is why they like to claim that they're the leap year capital.
I mean, every town's got to have their shtick.
Yes.
So, nice.
The last one from, this was coming from the Cincinnati Enquirer. The last one, which I thought was fun, is that famed bartender Harry Craddock in Britain created a special Leap Day cocktail for guests at the Savoy Hotel in London.
Oh.
The recipe dates to 1928 and was published in Haddock's book, The Savoy Cocktail Book. It's 2 ounces of gin, a half-ounce Grand Marnier, a half-ounce sweet vermouth, and 1 dash of fresh lemon juice.
Sounds quite good, actually.
It does sound good, doesn't it?
I am a big fan of bitter cocktails.
Yes.
So that I'll have to bookmark that for, 2 years from now.
Yeah. England also celebrates St. Oswald's Day on Leap Day. St. Oswald of Northumbria died on the 29th of February and is commemorated with church gatherings and feasts on Leap Day.
Oh.
I just feel like this has been an interesting month for just like Roman and Catholic saints and effects on humanity.
What an odd little serendipitous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we don't tell each other what the episodes are really going to be about until we're sitting down to write the intros. So
yeah, until we're like, okay, time to record. Hey, what's your episode this month?
Yeah, exactly. In Germany, leap year is considered a symbol of rebirth. The leap year traditions in Germany are unique. 1, it's a time to give a special gift. And 2, it's celebrated on a day that is not leap day.
Wait.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
So in leap years, instead of on February 29th, they celebrate the day before May Day, which is May's first Monday.
Oh?
And in the Rhine Valley, young men would place a small decorated birch tree at the doorstep of the girl that they were swooning for. The gift exchange gets reversed during leap year, and it's the girl's turn to leave a birch tree token of love for the boys that they fancy.
That's cute.
Yeah.
Also, I love that it's a birch tree.
Uh-huh. And it's in May.
Why not?
Yep. From history.com, we have this little tidbit. There are about 5 million people in the whole world who have been born on February 29th, with the odds of being born on Leap Day standing at about 1 in 1,461.
Whoa!
Leaplings technically only get to celebrate their birthdays once every 4 years, but they do get to be a part of a very small group. What was interesting, and this comes from the OPB article that I've been talking about before, Why Do We Leap Day? Renelle Dawn, the co-founder of the Honor Society of Leap Year Day Babies,
Nice.
has talked to NPR about this whole thing of the February 29th because many online forums, including like those at the DMV, don't recognize February 29th as a possible birth date.
Oh, yeah, that's...
And that can cause a lot of trouble. And she's quoted as saying, "Humans program the computer, so the humans need to program it correctly. Because February 29th is everyone's extra day, and it's a day that started in 45 BC. It is the most important date on the calendar because it keeps all the dates on the calendar in line with the seasons."
Yeah. It is strange that the DMV wouldn't necessarily have,
Yeah.
considering part of its whole purpose is correct information.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the idea of that paperwork being such a nightmare is horrifying.
Yeah, it's already a nightmare, and then you add that on top of it.
Right.
Yikes. So our final little section is going to wrap up that Smithsonian Folklife article, Why Things Go Topsy-Turvy,
Mm-hmm.
with some more of these traditions, specifically in the United States. As we know, right, European customs have flowed through into the U.S. since its founding, and more so during the Ellis Island days, et cetera, et cetera. So we find that there were new traditions being developed or old traditions being changed. And in 1860, Ralph Waldo Emerson received a letter from his daughter Ellen, which described a leap year party that she attended. And essentially, it was a cotillion, but the other way around, where the boys sat around the edge of the party and the girls would go up and ask them to dance. After the dance, they would promenade leaning on the girls' arms and being fanned, and that it was often considered a very humorous time. In the early 20th century, leap year postcards kept this idea alive, but this is the time when it started to shift from something good-natured and mutually enjoyable to bad, misogynistic.
Oh.
Postcard manufacturers, and this comes from Glittering Mockery, 20th Century Leap Year Marriage Proposals from 2012, written by Professor Catherine Parkin of Monmouth University. She's talking about how leap year postcards became a thing, and many of them portrayed women on the hunt for men to marry on February 29th. But the cards' humor were considered very anti-romantic, often portraying women as domineering or unattractive aggressors, and therefore reinforcing men's anxiety towards the institution of marriage.
The old joke of, the old ball and chain, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Basically just an extension of that.
Yeah, and I'll have some images of some of those cards up on the website as well.
Also, quite a month for cards.
Yeah.
For our pictures.
Yeah.
For our episodes.
Interesting how that works.
Huh. Ain't that funny?
And our last little tidbit, which I think everybody local to here will find interesting.
Oh?
And I'm going to quote this one exactly. Starting in the early 1930s, 3 Illinois cities west of Chicago, Aurora, Joliet, and Morris, used the topsy-turviness of February 29th as a day for women to replace men as police officers, firefighters, and city council members. According to Libby Nelson from Vox, women, quote, used the day to jokingly arrest, jail, and fine unmarried men, unquote. But their ultimate motive was to find a husband. Nelson observed, for a tradition founded entirely on a sexist stereotype that the only possible use a woman could have for political power would be to flirt with unmarried men, it proved surprisingly enduring. The last time Aurora handed over its municipal government to women was on February 29th, 1984. So that's 54 years of every 4 years.
That is, honestly, kind of wildly amusing.
Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? Aurora would.
Of all places, Aurora doesn't necessarily surprise me.
No. That is our little deep dive and celebration of Leap Day and Leap Year, halfway to the next one.
Halfway there!
We're halfway there!
Halfway there.
Do you have any questions or comments?
I don't think so. I think we got to everything I had during the episode.
Cool.
That's a wrap on episode 31, Leap Day. If you'd like to delve further into this topic, our research, sources, and related images are posted on our website, hyperfixation-investigations.com. Again, that is hyperfixation-investigations.com. Thank you so much for listening.
Follow us on social media for updates, and stay tuned on our various platforms and website for news and upcoming perks.
See you next time, and remember, what's a little info dumping between friends?